Hello, Mzansi. Welcome to another episode of Farmers Inside Track. My name is Duncan Masua, and we are back with another episode powered by Voermol Feeds. Now, in this episode, we are focusing on Voermol Premix 450, designed to support cattle growth, condition, and reproductive performance. Of course, we'll be speaking to Dr. Josef van Wyngaard, Voermol Feeds Technical Manager, to explore what makes Voermol Premix 450 different from other protein supplements. Dr. Josef, welcome back to Farmers Inside Track.
Always a pleasure.
Now, of course, we're talking Voermol Premix 450. For those who may not have heard about it before, what exactly is the Premix 450?
Premix 450 is also one of those products in the market that if you hear Premix 450, then exactly referring to one of Voermol's products, been there for ages and it's been upgraded continuously. So where this product fits in as a protein lick, it's a cost-effective, ready-mixed maintenance lick for cattle only. And this is specifically on dry veld, which refers to, let's say, your dry conditions. In the summer rainfall area, it will be in the winter time, and in your winter rainfall areas, in the Cape area, that will fall in the summertime. So what this protein lick does for you, it's a protein supplement for your cattle, supplying the limiting nutrient on that specific grazing, which is protein. And that's mostly in the form of NPN, which stands for non-protein nitrogen. And that's a very important nutrient for your microbes of the ruminant. So it helps them to perform optimal. And with that, they will help the animal to stimulate the intake of, let's call it, your low quality roughages, your winter grazing, to call it in short. So at the end of the day, it just helps your animal to maintain a weight throughout that difficult times.
Fantastic. You talk about supplying limiting nutrients. If a farmer starts using Premix 450 today, what are the noticeable results that they can expect to see?
Remember, this is not a performance lick in terms of you'll see production changes or anything. So this is about maintaining your animal's weight throughout the winter and to ensure you still get your intake. So changes that you will notify will be the consistency of the manure of the animals. So, you won't get these hard balls almost, that I want to say, that you see in areas where there's a challenge in the grazing and those animals not necessarily getting the sufficient nutrients that they're supposed to get. And then what happens is the rumen or the gastrointestinal tract basically comes to a standstill. And that's when you get these hard manure balls almost that's coming out. So the difference that you'll see when using Premix 450, the manure consistency, it won't be hard, it won't be too soft, it will just be of good consistency. And that means that the gastrointestinal tract is moving. So the animal is getting intake. And with that nutrients being supplied by that Premix 450, we know that the microbes in the rumen are doing their job by breaking down the low quality roughages and turning that into protein and maintenance energy for the animal to ensure that the animal does not lose weight during those challenging times.
So consistency of the manure in animals, talking about it not being too hard or not too soft. When we look at bulls' fertility and semen quality, these are often considered crucial before mating. How does Premix 450 help support these aspects and maintain overall bull condition?
Well, if you look traditionally, when you make use of your bulls, if you've got your one group of animals with a breeding season, then traditionally you breed your cows from, let's say, some farmers start even October, but the majority will be November, December, January, over that period. So what's important is to prepare your bulls before you put them to the cows, before you start your mating season. But now remember, the time before that summer is the end of winter. So you don't sit with good quality roughages, you sit with the dry grazing. And that's where Premix 450 comes into play with your bulls. It not just supplies the protein in non-protein nitrogen form to ensure that your microbes do their job and you get sufficient intake, but at the same time, we're also supplying trace minerals through Premix 450. And a very important one is vitamin A, which is in a rumen protected form. So that ensures that you get optimal fertility out of your animals, even before the mating season starts. So you're starting to prepare that animal at that stage. And you need to make sure that your minerals, specifically your trace minerals, and we're talking about zinc, manganese, copper, selenium, and all of those trace minerals plays a major role in fertility and reproduction performances, not just with our bulls, but for our cows as well. And then, as I mentioned before, the vitamin A as well. So that's like a fertility pack that's almost in Premix 450 in preparing our animals on difficult grazing conditions in terms of referring to the quality of the grass.
I'm wondering, Dr. Josef, for farmers who mix their own feed with maize and concentrates, what is the recommended method or ratio when incorporating Premix 450?
So just to recap, the Premix 450 is a ready mix. So you can feed it directly out of the bag. So it's already got its own salt component along with the protein and all the other nutrients as mentioned before. But then there is options to mix it into a production lick. So when you move out of winter and you're moving into, let's say, late winter phase, early spring. So that's the time before the rain came. So your quality of your felt is still very low. But now the availability or the quantity of your felt is also an issue. You've already grazed that down. So now there's a quality and availability issue at the same time. Then your animals will need a production lick. So that's where the flexibility comes in with Premix 450. Now you don't need to go and buy different products. You keep to your Premix 450. You just mixed it 1-to-1 with maize. So 1 bag of Premix 450 and 1 bag of crushed maize. And you feed that at an intake of between 1 kilogram to 1.5 kilogram per animal per day. Remember, this is for cattle only. And then that's the easiest way to turn your Premix 450 into a production lick. And that will be sufficient for both your bulls and your cows during that late winter, early spring time, just to support them in terms of additional energy and additional performance for their requirements.
You mentioned earlier some of the noticeable changes that one can expect to see, specifically referring to the consistency of manure in animals. I'm wondering, are there any key performance indicators such as weight gain or body condition score that farmers should be keeping track of when using Premix 450?
Yeah, sure. Body condition score, that's directly linked to the weight gain of the animals. So that's one key indicator as well, not just to ensure that the weight remains the same, but then at the same time, the condition score of the animal remains the same. So a good way to measure it is before you go into the winter. For instance, when you start supplementing your Premix 450, then it's maybe a good time just to score your animal's body condition. And then you get an idea. Let's say they go into winter at a 3 out of 5 score or 3.5. And maybe at the middle of the winter, you can score them again. And then the idea is for that body condition to remain more or less the same. Or it's okay if it drops by a minimum of a body condition score point. So let's say if they go in at a 3.5 and they drop to a 3, that's still acceptable. But their weight must remain the same. Weight can increase, but definitely not decrease. So that would be some of your key performance indicators.
If I'm a new farmer, I'm new in the game, and I'm considering Premix 450 as part of my feeding program, Dr. Josef, what advice do you have for me?
That's a perfect product to start your cattle enterprise with. It's easy, it's flexible, it's cost effective. Feed it out of the bag. So you start as soon as you receive the first frost. Then that's a good indicator because the quality of the felt will immediately decrease. So that's the time when you start supplementing Premix 450 out of the bag. So that would be your protein supplement. And then again, as soon as your first cow starts calving here in early spring, late winter, then it's also a good indication to maybe start mixing your Premix 450 1-to-1 with maize to create a production lick, with the purpose to ensure that you adhere to the animal's increased requirement, because now your cows are starting to lactate. They've got calves that's suckling on them. Give them some more energy. And that's an easy way to do it. So you mix your Premix 450. And then at the same time, just to ensure that you're maintaining your bull's body condition and performance as you build up towards your next mating season. So that would be my advice on how to use your Premix 450.
There you have it, Dr. Josef van Wyngaard, Technical Manager at Voermol Feeds, talking to us about their Premix 450. You can, of course, read more on this topic by visiting www.foodformzansi.co.za. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss any of the episodes. From me, Duncan Masua, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #Team Food from Zanzi, thanks for listening.